Hello and welcome to the Grove Church Podcast. I'm Charlie Lofton, the lead pastor there, and we are so glad that you are joining us. Whether you are a member and you're just catching up on a sermon that you missed, or you're someone who's brand new, we are really glad that you are joining us. And if you are new in some way, and I know that a lot of people will do that, will listen to sermons first before they visit, I want you to know that we would love to meet you at any point. You can join us live in our services on Sunday, 9 and 10:30, or our streaming service at 10:30. Either way, we would love to be able to get to know you. And regardless of why you are here listening to this sermon today, thank you so much for joining us. If you are new, I'm Charlie. I'm the lead pastor here. And if you are new, I would love to meet you. I have a little thing right here in the back, right after the service. I have a gift we'd love to give you. I'd love to meet you, and just any way that we can help you get better connected, learn about you. We would love to do that right after the service. Call it First Step. We'd love to meet you back there. And before we get into the sermon, just have a kind of a businessy kind of announcement that I want to make. We don't do this very often, and that's on me. To kind of spend some time just kind of talking about our leadership structure and kind of what kind of governs our church. And we essentially have two boards that help oversee the church. Kind of one is an elder board that oversees the spiritual, the theological side of our church, and a trustees team that oversees the administrative and finance piece of the church. So we have these two boards that kind of help govern, help the staff as we are leading this church. That's our structure. And we don't talk about it enough to kind of let you guys stay in the loop as kind of who these people are and how you can get information from them and express concerns. So we want to do a better job of that. And today was a good day because we have recently added members to each of those boards that I just kind of want you to be aware of. We've added a new elder to our board, Jacob Barnes. Oh. Both services, bro. Good job. No job. He has been a long-standing member of the Grove. He's a small group leader, deeply invested in our greeting team, and has just been a long shepherding presence here in our church. And so we're excited about adding him. And then our trustees team, we have added Mallory Miller. I don't know if she's in here or not. She may be out there, but she shares both services too. She's great. And I don't want to, I said it, I don't want this to sound patronizing, but I've known her since she was a kid, right? I mean, she was a college student when she started coming here, and it's been exciting watching her develop these skills as an incredible businesswoman with a huge heart and just an ability to kind of help oversee systems and things like that. So really excited about adding her to the team. And so the elder board is, in addition to Mark Powell-Freeman and I, is also Jacob Barnes, who we mentioned, Scott Sutton, and Bill Winters. And then our trustees team is Mallory, Ross Larwood, Dan Rasmussen, Kristen Baker, and Rob Potts. So I want you to be aware of that so that if you have any concerns on either one of these things, you feel like you've got a good outlet. And I asked Jacob and Mallory to kind of just both be there in the back, that you can meet them and talk to them if you'd like. And for them and for anyone, we're not a church, congregational church that votes on things, but our church really depends on the support and unity of each other. And so if you ever have any concerns, either about one of these two candidates or any of the other people that are on leadership, I want you to feel free to express them, because you may know things that we don't. And always, we ask for your support and for our unity, but also if you have any feedback that you need to give, those are great places to do that. So we are now week 4 into a 6-week series on unity. And this sermon series was planned in the spring. This particular week was planned in the spring, and the structure of this sermon was kind of put together in my brain a couple of weeks ago. And I say all that to say that had no idea leading up to what we would be talking about today, what would happen in our country this week. And I just have to confess, anytime there are kind of these culture-shattering kind of big moments, I always feel a little bit uneasy. It just always makes me sad. It's always true, but there's something about this week and Charlie Kirk being killed that it unsettled me more than I'm used to it unsettling me. And I'm not a particular big fan of his, but on the opposite side, I don't have any particular animosity towards him either. And so I was having a hard time this week really expressing it. And I was kind of battle testing different ideas. I was talking to my wife and to friends, even talked for a couple of minutes with my counselor about it this week. And there's a part of me is like, is it because I stand on a stage and say things that sometimes people don't like? I know that may sound dramatic, but I didn't know if that was part of it, because I had people get mad at me before. I've had people chase me out of the room before to yell at me. And we'll talk about one of those instances next week as we continue on with this series. I've had people threaten violence against me before, right? And so, but I don't think that was it. And I think after just a lot of processing for me personally, I think the thing that has caused me just the most anxiety is that this feels like it could be and maybe a real tipping point in our culture. That it just, if you've been around here more than a few weeks, you have heard me probably multiple times criticize pretty severely what I believe is a very toxic culture that we have as it relates to politics and political media, and how it seems to me that the capital that they trade in is our fear and our anger. And it seems to me, and I've been saying this for a while, that we've just kind of been building this, and unless something happens, things are just going to get worse and worse and worse. And this feels to me, it may not be, it may be, it may not be. It feels to me like a tipping point. And if it is a tipping point, I don't have any real confidence in our culture at large to tip it the right way. And there's a part of me that makes me really nervous. And I've had because of my role and kind of who I am, I've had a lot of people just expressing a lot of different anxieties, a lot of different sorts of concerns, ranging the spectrum of left to right and everything in between, of different sorts of people processing it a lot of different ways. And I think one of the biggest conclusions I've come to, and again, I believe that this ties in very significantly into what we're talking about today, whether or not this is a tipping point or not, it is certainly a moment. It is a moment may not ultimately be a moment in all of U.S. history, but it is certainly a moment in our time. This is a moment in our time where we're gonna remember this week. And we have these moments from time to time. We have these moments that kind of undo our culture a little bit, that kind of bring shock to our communities. And sometimes we don't know what to do. We don't necessarily even know how to process it, whether you were a fan or whether or not you feel like he was against you and what you believe, or anything in between. Regardless of any of that, I believe that one of the most important things in moments like this is, who are we going to be in this moment? Who are you? Who do you want? When you look back at this moment and you think, here is who I was, not just simply what I did, not just simply what I said, but this is who I was. How can we show Christ to our community and to our world in these moments? It is times like this that we tend to tribe up. I get in my tribe, and I've got to get in my tribe, and I've got to defend my tribe. I've got to raise up my tribe, and I've got to attack the other tribe. And we get into these tribes, and I want to remind all of us that our tribe is Jesus' tribe. And he has called us above all else to be unified with one another, and through that unity, bring hope and life to an increasingly more toxic world. That is who he's called us to be. And I think because of the way our culture currently is, and the way that it has infected the church at large, and infected a lot of us individually, I think it is more important now than ever to really understand what unity is. What is it that unifies us? And then beyond these things that unify us, how can we live in unity even when we disagree? And even when we disagree about things that we might consider to be quite important. How can we still model the unity and love that Jesus Christ himself said was essential to our mission in bringing hope and life to the world? So we're going to look at a couple of different passages. We're going to look at a couple of different passages that kind of reflect some different kind of theological, cultural moments in the early church's history where the apostles at large or a couple of the apostles had to deal with, and the way that they handled them was very different. And I think that if we can look at these and understand them, I think it can give us a blueprint and a framework for how to have real unity even in the midst of disagreements. And so the first one is in Acts chapter 15, and this story right here has come to be known as the Council of Jerusalem. This is kind of the first of what ultimately is going to be many, many councils in the history of Christianity. I don't know how familiar you are with the different councils that have happened over time to help determine what was going to be in the New Testament and what the church believes about Jesus and the Holy Spirit. There's been a series of these. And you may think, bro, why would I know any of that? But you should. You should know about these councils. Anyways, if you listen to our podcast, Abigail Boone, we talk about these councils from time to time. We talk about them, right? And this is kind of really set the precedent. Where an issue is so significant, it is important enough for us to come together to say, what is it the capital C church is going to believe about this? Acts chapter 15, starting verse 1. Certain people came down from Judea to Antioch and were teaching the believers, unless you are circumcised according to the custom taught by Moses, you cannot be saved. This brought Paul and Barnabas into sharp dispute and debate with them. So Paul and Barnabas were appointed, along with some other believers, to go up to Jerusalem to see the apostles and elders about this question. The church sent them on their way, and as they traveled through Phoenicia and Samaria, they told how the Gentiles had been converted. This news made all the believers very glad. When they came to Jerusalem, they were welcomed by the church and the apostles and elders, to whom they reported everything God had done through them. Then some of the believers who belonged to the party of the Pharisees stood up and said, the Gentiles must be circumcised and required to keep the law of Moses. The apostles and elders met to consider this question. We'll stop right there. So they go on and kind of gives some record of this debate, kind of goes back and forth. And ultimately, Peter gets up, kind of as the spokesman for the council, to say, here's what we've decided. And basically says, listen, this burden of the law and trying to follow the law and do all these things, it's been a burden forever. None of us have ever been able to live up to it. Why would we take this and give this to people who weren't even raised in our culture? Because that is not what following Jesus is about. This is our culture, but it is not about this thing that unites all of us regardless of our culture. This is not what unites us. What unites us is who Jesus Christ is, what his death on the cross did for us. And what you're saying here, perhaps unintentionally, is that Jesus' death on the cross is not enough. It is not enough to simply put your faith in Jesus Christ. You have to also follow these rituals. And there was this moment in time where it's like, we need to make sure that we are all absolutely clear on this. There's no ritualistic devotion or acts that you have to do in order to have faith and a relationship with Jesus Christ. It is believing in who he is and what he did, and that is it. It is not about following these customs. And it mattered enough to where this was just kind of a definitive moment. And it's not that everybody in that room believed it. There was a group that kind of splintered off then from the church that Paul is addressing all the time in his letters. These people were essentially following Paul around, trying to deceive the people in the church. It's like, no, I know he said this, but really it's this. And Paul is constantly addressing this. This is not up for debate. What Jesus Christ did on the cross requires nothing from you but your faith and your trust in him, and that's it. Do not let anyone tell you any different. And I think the story, the principle that I want us to take from this, because when we're talking about the thing that really unites us, who Jesus is and what he did, that is the basis of the unity. And when something is attacking that, then we have to take a stand. And I'll say it this way, that when it matters, it matters. And when we're talking about who Jesus is and what he did and the significance of it, that matters enough. Because it is the basis for the unity. And so there are some things that people can believe that like, that's totally fine. I'm not saying that when it matters, I mean, we can be unkind to somebody. But if someone were to say to me, I just think Jesus was a really good prophet who just had a normal birth through normal parents. It was just a person, but a really special one. I was like, I totally understand why you think that. But I would also look and say, that is a Muslim belief, not a Christian belief. That is a Jehovah's Witness belief. That is not a Christian belief. And it's fine in some regard, right? I'm not going to be angry with you. I don't have to fight you about this. But when we talk about what it means to be a follower of Jesus, that's just not it. And this is what the disciples are saying here. Hey, you need to also, in addition to trusting in Jesus, you have to follow these certain rules. It's like, well, okay, that is not what Jesus Christ taught us. That is enough to say that is not a Christian belief. There are still some people out there that say things like this. And as bad as it's unkind as it might seem, it's like, well, that is just not a Christian belief. You have to put your faith in Jesus Christ alone. And that is what unites us as Christians. And so I've been working on this metaphor for a while. And I think I finally got it. I think I finally got it set. But it's like, you have a theological house, a belief system, and it's a house that you're building. And the first and most important decision you have to make is where I'm going to put it. What type of dirt, right? Where am I going to put my house? And when we say, I'm going to put my house, I want to be a Christian. I want my house in a Christian, I want it to be a Christian house. That soil, right? Who Jesus is, what his death on the cross did for you. That is what that is. And that is what unites us. That is the basis of the unity. The Jesus that we get to worship and the death and resurrection that we celebrate. That is what unites us. And then as you think about building the house, there's this foundation. There is these things that, you're in the right neighborhood, but if you don't get this foundation right, you're going to have real problems with your house long term. And one of the ones I personally would put into that category is what we say about the Bible. If you kind of have a Bible, hit or miss kind of attitude towards it, it's going to affect you. We believe that the Bible is fully authoritative in what it teaches, right? And so that is a foundational principle upon which the whole house is built. And then there's kind of where the walls go and the support beams that hold up the roof and all the things that make it the house. Important things, but your house may be different than their house, and our house as a church is different than the house the other church makes, right? One of the big ones here is that churches tend to discuss is like, what is the role of the Holy Spirit in a believer's life? And are there certain gifts that are supposed to manifest in every believer? Right? That is an important piece that defines your house. And then there's some things that are just decorative. They're just decorative. Like it doesn't really affect the structure of the house. It's just kind of the things that I think. And I think it is important for us to understand where the unity comes from and then where the beauty of diversity can come from. The unity comes in the soil. It comes in the foundation. And then there can be beauty in the differentness of the house and the decorations of the house. But we stand here in unity on these things, and we learn how to be unified even in disagreements as we are building different sorts of houses. And there are times when unity becomes challenged that you have to do something about it. We're sitting here talking about adding new leadership to our team. There is a lot, we expect a lot more unity even in the house when we talk about leaders. And there have been times when I have asked leaders to step down because they were attacking not decorative things in the house, but foundational pieces of the house. In the times in my 20 plus years of doing this that I've had to do this, I've ever enjoyed it. But it's not a difference of opinion up here. Is an attack on our unity down here. And when that happens, we need to take a stand. And again, it is not about whether or not somebody can be here. I've said this before, I'll continue to say it. I want all the people who believe the Bible is just a book, I want them to come here. I want all the people who think that they have to work for their salvation, I want them to come here. I want all the people who have bad ideas about Jesus, he's just a good person. I want all of them to be here. I want to be a place where you get to hear the truth about who Jesus is. I want this to be that place. And just because someone disagrees down here, that's not a measure, that's not a call to unkindness. But you become someone that we want to persuade. It's not up for discussion, at least not in this context. We want to persuade you because this is what makes us us. This is what makes us the body of Christ. These foundational, these soil beliefs that make us who we are. And so that is where our unity is found. And so we need to ultimately learn to understand the difference. And we're going to talk about this more as we go on, right? The unity of who Jesus is and what he did, that's what binds us. Now, what about the things that we build on top of that? How can we, as followers of Jesus Christ, stay unified even amongst not just diversity of socioeconomic class or race or country, but even amongst kind of what feels to some of us like some core values that we have? When we disagree up here, how do we maintain that unity? There's another passage I want us to look at, Romans 14, verses 1 to 4. Except the one whose faith is weak, without quarreling over disputable matters. One person's faith allows him to eat anything, but another whose faith is weak eats only vegetables. The one who eats everything must not treat with contempt the one who does not, and the one who does not eat everything must not judge the one who does, for God has accepted them. Who are you to judge someone else's servant? To their own master, servants stand or fall, and they will stand, for the Lord is able to make them stand. Now, if you are a vegetarian here, I don't want you to take this the wrong way because out of context that could be used. And if you have a vegetarian friend and you just want to needle them a little bit, you can just drop that verse on them, I guess, if you would like. And it says, if you have weak faith, you're a vegetarian. That's really not really kind of what he means here. Not in our context anyway, right? Again, this is actually connected to what we were talking about before. Like, how does my faith connect with my Jewish customs and backgrounds and what is or is not acceptable to eat? Do I still have to follow the same dietary laws and restrictions that I had when I was a member of this faith, and because this faith is actually part of my culture? And there were some people who was like, no, I still must do this. And other people were like, were you not listening to the council? They said we don't have to do this. And even though there's disagreement about it, Paul's saying, accept each other without quarreling about it. And it is not that Paul does not have an opinion here. He does. And he's not subtle about it either. I would not even say he was particularly kind in his description of his thoughts about it. Just straight up saying the vegetarians have weak faith. I mean, that's not the nicest way he could have said that, right? He has an opinion, I would say a strong opinion about it. And even in that says, it is not for you to decide whether or not that issue makes someone acceptable to their master, to Jesus. That is for Jesus to say. Jesus will decide if they'll stand. And guess what? They will stand. And do you know why? Because it is always Jesus that's doing the standing anyway. And so you should learn to just be okay with the fact that there are people that have a different perspective on issues different than you. And again, it is not that this is not important. It is important. How you feel like your practical morality plays out in your day-to-day life, that matters. Am I being faithful to God in the way that I live my life? That absolutely matters. But this group has chosen one path, and this group has chosen another path, and it is not something that is attacking the unity of our faith. And since it is not, learn to get along without quarreling. Accept each other. Who are you to judge? When it matters, it matters. And when it doesn't, It doesn't. And this is not to say that there's not a right perspective and a wrong perspective. Paul clearly believes that there is. That's not to say that this issue is not on some level important. It is important. But if it is not the kind of thing that attacks the thing that unifies us at the foundation of our faith, then we have to learn to show kindness and grace and acceptance of one another, even as people are disagreeing with us, even as people are just flat out wrong. And this is something that I've been working on for most of my life, and it's a relatively new development for me. And I would say it started really in the last 10 years, and I've gotten better at it over the last 5 years. And it's even gotten to the point to now, when I don't do this, I notice it, and I want to text my wife and say, hey, guess what I did? I did this today. And you're going to hear it, and you're going to be like, bro, there's something wrong with you, right? Sometimes I'm this person, if you say something out loud and it's just wrong, and it doesn't even have to be about anything significant. Oh, you know what my favorite movie is? And you describe a movie, and that's not the movie. That's actually a different movie. That didn't happen in The Godfather. That happened in The Godfather 2, actually. No, that was not in Iron Man. That didn't happen until The Avengers. You say it, I'm like, or you say a word, and well, that's not what that word means. Nope, that's just not. Can I let someone say something wrong near me and not have to correct them? It's not easy. And I did. This was very recent. I texted my wife the other day. Somebody said this word and they meant this word, and I just let them. Right? And you're judging me, right? You're judging me. Oh, you're judging me only because you know you're like that. Especially about something that matters to you. Now you start talking about politics. You start talking about morality. And someone says something that you believe to be morally wrong. Can you, for the sake of the Thanksgiving dinner, for the high school reunion, where it's 5 minutes and this event's going to be over, to prevent any HR concerns, whatever it is, I can let you be wrong near me and it just be okay. I think we struggle with that a lot. And the reason I know it, because we struggle with people being wrong way over there. I just read something that someone said that I used to know, and they said it 400 miles away yesterday, and I just happened to be reading it on my computer, and this cannot stand. Wrong. That says something about us. That just says something about us, that we cannot be okay with somebody being wrong. Parentheses, from your perspective, close parentheses. That doesn't mean you shouldn't say something, you should never say anything. But the question that I would have is, what's the goal? What's your purpose? Is it so that they know they're wrong? So that the other people around know they're wrong? Is it most likely you need people to know how right you are? I think sometimes we have an obsessiveness with everybody knowing that we are right, especially start talking about tribes and camps. I'm in the right camp, and I need you to know it. It's gotten to the point we have a name for it. Virtue signaling. It is important that you know I am a good person, unlike this person who said bad person thing. I guess I kind of did it just a few minutes ago when I said, I want you to think I'm a good person because I'm not always correcting people all the time. Ding, ding, ding. I want you to think, I want you to think well of me. And so we do this and we don't think about the harm that it might cause or the pointlessness of it. Is my goal to love people well? Is my goal, I look at them and they say that and I think, that's not helpful. If they continue to follow that path, they're going to end up in a dangerous place. I need to talk to them. I need to help them. I need them to understand. Are you coming from a place of compassion? Coming from a place of help? Coming from a place of encouragement? I want to help you. Have you considered this instead of this? If your goal is to love people well, if your goal is to preserve unity while disagreeing about this, then our attitude is going to be way different than the ways that we can sometimes be, even when we're in front of each other, much less when we're kind of in our keyboard warrior phase. My goal is compassion. My goal is to help, not to judge, like Paul says, not to criticize, not to elevate myself, not to put me here, make sure you know that you're down here. And we've got to understand, there are things that matter. When our unity gets attacked, we need to be strong and defend the thing that unifies us. But when we get up here, we just have to learn to handle ourselves a little bit differently. Our challenge is, and I've said this for a long time, we don't know the difference. We don't know the difference. Because we don't know the difference between what we'll call a major theological issue, a minor theological issue, and just a choice, a preference. And I'll give you an example from something in my life growing up. It was important on a Sunday morning to quote, wear your Sunday best, because, quote, God deserves your best. Okay? Now, if you want to know what it was like being me, even at 12 years old, 12-year-old Charlie, he had a very math brain, a very literal sort of brain, and it was like, okay, well, if that's true, then there is exactly one outfit in your closet that you should wear on any given Sunday. Because you don't get to, you shouldn't wear your third best outfit. You didn't say there is a range of outfits that are among your best, choose those. No, wear your best. Well, that's only one. And if I know of and can afford a better outfit than this, then this isn't good enough either. And how many times can I wear this before it runs down and now it moves number 2 and I got to switch to this one? And at what point do I not have something good enough? That's what it was like raising me. You want to be my pastor growing up? No, I kept it to myself. I kept all this to myself. But it starts with you should wear nice clothes because of how important God is. Then that becomes a very major theological issue really quick. Do you really believe that God is the God of the universe and holy and separate and worthy of your worship? And I can communicate that I do not believe that God is worthy of my worship by wearing jeans on a Sunday. And we have no idea how to navigate this. And especially in a world that is becoming more and more polarized, more and more divisive, we don't know how to do this because we've got to figure out, if we're going to figure this out, right? When it matters, it matters. When it doesn't, it doesn't. And we have to learn to discern the difference. We just have to learn. It is going to require some study on our part. I promoted it a second ago. I'll promote it again. We spend a lot of time in our Cultivate podcast that comes out on Wednesdays. We talk a lot about these theological matters. You may feel like that you need some understanding and equipping in that. Not only do we talk about them, but we also talk about them in the terms that I've talked about. Abigail is very faithful to ask, is this soil? Is this foundation? Is this house? Is this decoration? Where does this fit? Kind of help us understand that. But in addition to just kind of reading and studying, I think there has to be a measure of prayer and discernment in this. And I think there's a grid that we have to go through. Is this issue, is it essential? Is this an essential issue? If it's not, well, then that kind of helps me know. I need to dial it back a little bit. Am I confident enough in what I believe that I feel like I have authority in this matter? Because it's probably not everybody against this person. This has probably been a largely disputable matter for a long time. Am I confident enough that I feel like that I'm right? And what is my attitude like? Is my attitude one of curiosity? Is my attitude one of humility? Or is my goal to try and dominate? Because I think robust discussion only helps all of us. We referenced this verse last week where Paul says this. It's good that you disagree because it allows us to figure out where God stands on this issue. It's good. Disagreeing and talking about it. It is important, but it comes from how do we build each other up? And everyone can have strong, if different houses. And our unity allows us to speak into one another's houses, but we do it with empathy, with curiosity, with humility. Now, this happens to me a lot. And of course, it's happened to me even more this week as all these events have swirled around. But people will text me. Some people text me, they just ask me questions. I don't know what to make of this. Blah, 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 blah. Some people use me, and I encourage you to do this, will use me as their social media. If I could just rant unprovoked on social media, this is what I would say. And they will text me some, yeah, okay. And I'll click like, and usually I'll text back, thank you for not putting that out in the public, right? I mean, that's great. If you need to get it off your chest, get it off your chest to me, right? And there's been a theme, there's actually two themes this week from different sorts of people on the spectrum. People who have more of a liberal bent. I don't understand why they take this guy and have to turn him into some superhero Christian martyr kind of guy. I don't understand. And people over here, like, I don't understand why, just because they disagreed with him politically, why do you have to say such horrible things about someone who's dead? I don't understand. And the first thing, I guess not the first thing, this actually came some reflection leading up to today. I think ultimately my answer to both of those questions is, that is an interesting question if you ask them. Hey, it seems like this guy really meant a lot to you. Can you tell me what it was about what he said or who he was that impacted you in such a way where you feel like he is this important to you personally? I would like to know. Hey, what was it about what he says and believes that was so hurtful to you? Especially if you think, man, these are the things that I believe, and I'm now discovering that there's someone that I want to have unity with that has been hurt by these beliefs. I would like to know what they are because I have some of them. And this is an opportunity for me to not only learn about my friend who is either angry or is grieving. It's an opportunity for me to learn about them, to understand them better, to preserve the unity, and to disagree without being hurtful. And if there is anything that this moment calls for, it is learning how to fight against a toxic culture that says, if you disagree with me, you are evil. What if, bound by the unity of Jesus Christ, we could find ourselves having really healthy, productive conversations about the biggest issues of our time and modeling love and unity amongst diversity to a world that not only is desperate for it, but cannot even particularly fathom it at this moment. Jesus Christ himself said, the love and the unity that we have for one another is absolutely essential to the mission. This is how people are going to know that you are my followers, by the way you love each other well, because out there, they don't know how to do it. And if we can show them love and acceptance in theological and moral diversity, in a place where we are encouraging and building each other up, challenging and refining each other's houses, helping each other redecorate and remodel when need to, but at a place of love and compassion and friendship and unity. You don't think the world will be drawn to that by the thousands? This is a moment for us. And we have to ask ourselves the question, what are we going to allow to destroy our unity? What issue, even if it is important, even if it matters to you personally, what will we let destroy our unity? And what will we just this is just part of the mission God has given us to amidst all sorts of disagreements and misunderstandings and differences of perspective, our unity in Christ brings love to one another and hope to the world. Let me pray. God, I thank you for your Son, Jesus Christ, who makes all this possible. And God, I pray that we would have real unity, not around nothing, not around just the idea of kindness, but around who you are, what you did for us through your Son, Jesus Christ. And that, God, we would not allow our own hurts, our politics, differences in what makes something or someone moral or not. God, we would not allow that to break our unity. But God, through the disagreements, through the differences of perspective, God, you would strengthen the unity. And that we can encourage one another and bring hope to a world that just doesn't know how to do it. And again, we're thankful for your Son who makes it possible. And it's in his name we pray. Amen. Thanks again for joining us on our sermon podcast, and you can learn more about us at thegrovechurch.org. And if you go to thegrovechurch.org/connect, there's a form you could fill out. Just let us know that you've been listening. And if you want to dig deeper on some of these topics that we cover in our sermon podcast, or just in other issues of dealing with culture or theology, those kinds of things, you can check out our Cultivate podcast, which is on the same feed, however you found this particular podcast. So again, this is Charlie, the lead pastor at The Grove, and thank you so much for joining us.